Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in The Spiritual Life by Edgar Sheffield Brightman, published in 1942. We have reached page 176. There are only 40 more pages to go to complete the work, so it's time to do our summary and to take a look at our composite complete phenomenology of spirit presented by Brightman. This is going to be his complete system as presented in this manuscript. And we've used this format before, but I'll give you a refresher on it. The left of the chart is subjectivity, the right of the chart is objectivity, the bottom of the chart is sensation, or the sensate realm, and the top part of the chart is the realm of the notion of the true. So left is subjective, right is objective, bottom is sensation, top is the true. This is going to be a look at the entire phenomenology of the spiritual life by Brightman. We'll begin with the bottom with block 1, our phenomenological starting point. Self begins with emotional power of a devotion to ideal value, coupled with a decision to move forward to belief, a belief in the union between existence and value. We begin with this spiritual impulse. We begin with the impulse of conviction. We begin with a spiritual impulse. Now, block 2, we do pass through negation. We must negate materialism because we must also affirm the existence of consciousness within empirical existence. Brightman says the self always begins with a conscious view of the world. We always have a world view, even in our initial stages here. We also negate subjectivism. Values are more than emotions, they bear the truth. Values bear the truth for Brightman. Now here we look at that pivot point in block 3, where we're going to transition into agency and personhood. Through evaluation, the self seeks to master the sensate by positing ideals. This is a proto-spiritual stage. Thumos energia emerges, which is the directed impulse of personhood to actualize value. We take up that drive. Our first Dokeo suppositions of value are formed, but they are individualistic. They are not formed with any kind of coherency. The opening of the self to the divine elevating influence in creation takes place. We reflect on self in light of divine purpose. Spiritual perception becomes inaugurated and enabled. We are aware that we live in a sacramental universe, that's what Brightman calls it. We become aware that we are living in a sacramental universe where the natural is raised up to doxa glory through the work of the Spirit. So once we discover this fact that we are a self, reflecting on self in light of divine purpose, we are next going to enter into dialogue with others. We're going to enter into Aristotle's De Kunta threshold in block 4 at the middle of the chart. Out of individual suppositions, we transition to the need for social knowledge. We seek a higher assurance of understanding, that's what Brightman calls it. We seek a assurance of understanding moving beyond supposition through dialogue. We enter into a critical search for true value. We want to raise our value claims, our value suppositions, into becoming true values through dialogue and refinement. This is the refinery of Aristotle's De Kunta threshold of dialogue. That's the refinery that refines our suppositions, which is the Greek dokeo, that's why it's called the De Kunta threshold. Our dokeo suppositions, through dialogue, are raised up to aletheia, true values. So we'll take a look at block 5, where we begin to enter into this realm of the true. Truth is value, Brightman says, is known truth. We organize these true values acquired through dialogue into systematic rational sign model. Then we become aware that we must enlist the logic of faith to verify these prescribed truths. We have to verify. We don't just hold it subjectively. We have to go out of the self and verify the truth we've gained through dialogue. And there are 3 moments of this verification, and it's called the logic of faith: experimental positing, outgoing desire, and interpretive construction. And the next 3 blocks are the logic of faith. 6, 7, and 8 are going to be those 3 moments. So that's going to be your logic of faith. If you look at 6, 7, and 8, that's the logic of faith for Brightman. Now in block 6, we look at axiosoteria positing of the real. Our eidos ideals as posited become a formal linguistic cause of actualizing the value of the kingdom. That's a key statement for Brightman, by the way. Our eidos ideals as posited become a formal linguistic cause of actualizing the value of kingdom. The prescribed true values become posited real values. Remember, the real is the realm of positing for Brightman. This constitutes our intentionality toward objective real value. It is our axiosoteric positing, which is necessarily followed up by praxis. Our axiosoteric positing seeks out those places where existence is being organized by agape, sacrificial love. We posit our new form of meaning to participate in the movement of spirit, in this movement of agape, self-sacrificing love. The second moment is that block 7 of outgoing desire, the testing of ideals through outgoing praxis desire. Our outgoing desire for value becomes praxis. It includes bearing the prophetic word, says Brightman, the prophetic word of proclamation, and it includes sacrificial love, which fuses all values together. Remember, Brightman said agape is the relational sign that fuses all eidos values together in coherence. It is our participation in the egeiro force of spirit, raising up eternity up through the finite, raising it up to a new spiritual level. We participate in God's ongoing incarnation, God's ongoing immanence, and developing movement of spirit. That's our second moment of the logic of faith. Now we move on to the third moment of the logic of faith in block 8, axiogenetic interpretive construction. Our positive value model is the guide to the production of ideal oughtness. This especially comes about in the moment of axiogenesis, when we give birth to the ideal through interpretive construction. This equals generation according to value. That's the definition, by the way, of axiogenesis. It equals generation according to value. Axiogenetic construction participates in the life of God's energia, the actualization of spirit as energia. Remember, spirit is a movement from dunamis, potential power, to energia, actualization. Spirit is always a movement for Brightman, from dunamis to energia, from dunamis, potentiality, to energia, actuality. Remember that. That is his movement of spirit, from dunamis to energia. So our logic of faith becomes block 6, axiosoteria positing of the real, block 7, the testing of ideals through outgoing praxis desire, and block 8, axiogenetic interpretive construction. That leads us to block 9, the bottom right, the return moment of reflexivity. The new axiogenetic possibilities are discovered through our activity of praxis. Remember, praxis is action and reflection according to the notion of the true that we hold, that true that we posited. It's always action and reflection. So new axiogenetic possibilities are discovered through praxis. We learn more of the objective conditioning of value. That's what Brightman says our task is. We need to learn, within the logic of faith, the objective conditioning of value, the divine spirit's objective conditioning of value. There is objective reality, objective personalistic God that objectively conditions value. And that creates the return moment. We return back into the unconscious that if you look over to the far left, block 10 and 11, that informs our state of mind. State of mind gets revised. State of mind gets revised like a gold refinery, and we purify our sign model. And that's going to, our mindset, our state of mind is going to feed back into the entire phenomenology again. We begin back, you notice that block 11 moves down to block 1 again. So we enter into the dialectic again because we have infinite number of tasks ahead of us, says Brightman in this manuscript. This gives us absolutely the coherency of a complete and in-depth phenomenology of spiritual life for Edgar Sheffield Brightman as presented in this beautiful scholarly manuscript. We have to be very thankful and grateful for this tremendous teaching. But as usual, you have to remember that the center of the chart is very important because Brightman does appreciate Aristotle's De Kunta threshold, where suppositions are raised up to truth. And you do that within the body of Christ. You do that in the Ecclesia Church. You do that in dialogue, in learning from worship and prayer and fellowship, koinonia fellowship in the body of Christ. And that's right there in the center. It's at the De Kunta threshold. And Brightman says that's where we raise up our opinions, our suppositions, our dokeo suppositions into discovery of true value. And true value then moves up into that top line of the chart where we begin with the awareness that this truth has to be that which goes out of the self into the world to seek verification through actualization, verification through praxis. And how does that happen? It happens through the logic of faith. And that's spelled out in block 5 up there. It's experimental positing, outgoing desire, and interpretive construction. And then the key to the chart, the key to understanding Brightman is blocks 6, 7, and 8. If you can understand blocks 6, 7, and 8, you've got this book. You've got it down. Because this book is really, it is his spiritual life presentation, but it also is his logic, because it is a logic of faith. It is a logic of faith. So concentrate on block 6, 7, and 8, the axiosoteria positing, the outgoing praxis of desire for value, and the axiogenetic interpretive construction. And interpretive construction takes place in objective reality, where we're trying to shape actuality into kingdom, and it also goes on subjectively when we reshape our state of mind. So interpretive construction is internal and external. It's subjective and objective, okay? Make sure you get that down. That block 8 is really, I show it in the objective realm, but it's going to also bounce back into the subjective realm. So it is interpretive construction, of course, of reality, shaping it into kingdom, and it's also reshaping and refining the spiritual state of mind. So it's got that that what Hegel called counterblow, and that's what Brightman's also taking up. It's that counterblow of entering back into the dialectic. And Brightman absolutely believes that. We're never finished. We keep moving forward. We have infinite number of tasks because the Spirit is infinite, and the goodness of God is infinite and eternal. It's a beautiful lesson, and it gives us our comprehensive picture of a complete phenomenology of spiritual life. We will pick up next time on those last 40 pages of the manuscript.